Built in the 1960s as ambitious public works, the Ontario Science Centre and Ontario Place are both beloved and a bit worse for wear. Now, the plan is to put them together on one site alongside a giant private spa on prime Toronto waterfront land. With us now on the advisability of the latest proposal, Usma Malik, Toronto City Councillor for Ward 10, Spadina, Fort York; Ken Greenberg, urban designer, former director of urban design and architecture for the City of Toronto, and member of Ontario Place for All; Anna Bailau, former Toronto City Councillor who is currently running for Mayor of Toronto; and Martin Ragcon, Ontario politics columnist for the Toronto Star. Welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. Now, before we get started, in the interest of full disclosure, Mark Lawson, a TVO board member, is Vice President of Communications and External Relations at Terma Group Canada, the company building the spa. We invited them, the Ontario Science Centre, and Ontario Minister of Infrastructure, Kinga Surma, to participate in tonight's discussion. All three parties declined. All right, with that being said, let's take a look at the current master plan proposal for Ontario Place put forward by the Ontario government, shall we? We are moving left to right on this map. On the West Island, it would include a 700,000 square foot spa, water park, and entertainment complex developed by Terme, an Austrian resort company. Last week, it was announced that the Ontario Science Centre will be demolished and moved to Ontario Place. And moving to the right, the province is also finalizing an agreement with Live Nation that will redevelop the existing outdoor amphitheatre and turn it into a year-round concert venue. And finally, here's how Ontario Minister of Infrastructure Kinga Surma described the plan. We are continuing to make progress on our vision to create a cultural and recreational landmark that will once again be fun for everyone. Together with the Ontario Science Centre, Live Nation, and Terme Canada, we are creating an iconic destination on Toronto's waterfront. All right, now we are going to get into the specifics of the plan, but in a sentence or two, how would you characterize the plan as a whole? Ken, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to just talk about the steps very quickly. Maybe two sentences, how we got here. We created something remarkable for Ontario Place back in 1970-71, a progressive conservative legacy project. We then got lost for decades when we kept calling what was a great waterfront park a business that had to be monetized. We ended up, the government, telling a big lie about the whole thing, that it was decrepit. The drumbeat on that started right after the election in 2018. All could be trashed. And all of that was to justify a truly horrible solution that nobody wanted or needed.
All right, Usma.
Yeah, Ontario Place is cherished, and it's been a cherished place for generations. I'm one of those that I count amongst the generations that cherish it. And it has actually demonstrated that it can be a welcoming, green, and publicly accessible space for all of us to enjoy. And what we're talking about is one of the most valuable pieces of waterfront real estate in North America. And we have this one precious chance to get it right for now, but also for our kids and for our grandkids. And to get it right, we have to ensure that we are engaging in good public policy on that vision for Ontario Place, that it's an open and transparent process in the decision making, so that we can have something that is beautiful and usable for the long haul. And instead, what we've gotten is a secretive process from this provincial government that is actually spending our precious public dollars to heavily subsidize a private spa and water park that has not proven that it belongs on our waterfront.
Anna, in a sentence or two.
I'm going to pick up on actually the spending of over $500 million to subsidize a private spa that most Torontonians won't be able to access a private company that I don't think anybody wants on our waterfront. I think that Torontonians' priorities is housing. It's affordable housing. That's why I talked about the Science Centre with the importance of maintaining the building as well. Let's not demolish our heritage. Let's make sure that that we keep that and we bring services. But above all, it's housing. And so it's very disturbing to see this amount of money and resources being spending on a private company on our waterfront where our major priority needs to be housing.
So Anna, there has been a lot of ambiguity about your position. I've heard you say what you've just said. to be clear, you're against the spa?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
All right, gonna get that on the record.
I am in favor of looking at the priorities that we have as a city. And right now, I would like to ensure that all hands on deck are building affordable housing in our city.
All right, so we'll work our way through the Ontario Science Centre and the spa and everything, but I want to make sure we get Martin in there. How would you characterize the plan in a sentence or two?
I felt forgotten there for a second. I would say that you can't go back in time, Jane. And all of us loved Ontario Place decades ago. And when I took my kids about a decade ago, well, you can't just rebuild it because people weren't coming 10, 12, 20 years ago. And they won't come again if we give them more of the same or if we build a boardwalk by the water. So I have full disclosure as well. I wrote a couple of columns about this 4 years ago saying, let's move the Science Centre to Ontario Place. Right. So I'm not going to oppose that idea. I've also written a column saying that the spa didn't really make a lot of sense as an anchor tenant. But I think it's time for something new and something proven and something old, a Science Centre that is a success, and we can talk more about why that would work.
Well,
So
I want
Martin,
to talk.
Can I just challenge you on one thing? I read your column.
You sure can, but I got to keep track of who's the host. But go ahead, yes.
I thought we were having a conversation. Of course, we can't go back. We can't recreate precisely what was there in 1970. But during COVID, 1.5 million people per year have come to use Ontario Place as a park. The bones of a great waterfront park are there. I hope we can show some images of how people are using it. We keep getting the trash talk from the ministers, from the premier, saying they drive by on Lakeshore Boulevard. The whole place is a mess. It needs to be completely done over. And the idea that with a population that's growing to 13 million people in the Greater Golden Horseshoe and people who don't have cottages, who want to get to the water, that we don't need more park space.
What's the question?
So Ken, actually, I want to point, there's some photos there that this was taken from the group of Ontario Place being used right now.
Yeah.
Martin has written in the past, that described Ontario Place as forsaken and forgotten and long dead. Is it fair to see Ontario Place as basically dead space right now?
Of course not. And all the people who are using it for all the things you've seen in the photograph there, we've been taking thousands of photographs in Ontario Place for All to show people, get out of your cars, leave the parking lot, come down and see how people from the region are using this and see how overcrowded all of our public spaces along the waterfront, which is our great resource, are. And not everybody has $40 to go and attend the spa. Having public parks as free space, we don't, in other great cities in the world, we don't ask our parks to be businesses. We don't treat them as profit centers. We treat them for what they are, and they have enormous value. And so I think the idea that it has to be some kind of commercialized attraction is nonsense.
All right, I'm going to move over to the Ontario.
I would just like to ask a
Yeah,
question.
I also.
All right, we'll go Anna and then Martin.
The Science Center commercialized attraction. I think we need to
I'm
set
not
the
talking
frame.
about the Science Center.
But you just did. So
yeah.
we need to set a frame for this discussion, or else we're just going to have speeches. I mean, let's talk turkey. So go ahead.
All right.
I'm all
let's start with the Ontario Centre. There is a plan to demolish the existing Science Centre and move it to the Ontario Place. Why do you support moving the Ontario Science Centre?
So I don't support demolishing the Science Centre. I support building housing on those parking lots and bringing services to those communities as we maintain a heritage building that is part of that community. There is a housing crisis in this city. That land where the parking lots are is on the 2 transit lines that could be building thousands of units of affordable housing. And I think we need to use every opportunity to come together and to bring more services to communities and more housing for the communities.
Asma.
The issue here is about tearing out a public amenity from one part of the city and dropping it into another without public consultation, without engagement, without a public process. Decisions of this significance have to be made in engagement with the local community. We have Flemington Park, we have Thorncliffe. They should have been consulted, informed, and part of the decision-making process, just like we expect that around Ontario Place and the local communities, the downtown communities that I represent. The process here is deeply flawed, and whatever potential benefit is in line with this scheme is undermined by this incredibly problematic process.
Martin, or I'll get you to respond to that because, you know, there are the communities there, and that community has spoken out that this is a huge cultural hub. This is a place that normally people wouldn't be visiting. You get almost under 1 million tourists, I believe, is on record every year. Pulling that and moving it to Ontario Place and just putting housing, does that community lose its appeal there?
That community would be gaining community services. That would be done in consultation with the community. When you're talking about workforce development or youth programs or seniors programs, you will develop a program with the community as well. My proposal is not to tear down the building, absolutely not. My proposal is to build affordable housing and to bring services to a community that needs it. That's what we need. Services, broad services for seniors, for youth, and work that with the community. Develop that with the community. Some might be around innovation. I mean, look at what we've done with things like the Brickworks or partnerships that we have with universities. That's what that community needs. It's actually an economic and community development plan to happen in that building to bring services across the people in the community and to build affordable housing. We have a great opportunity here. We have a housing crisis in our city. People in many of those communities are underhoused, overpaying in rent. People are getting pushed out of the communities because there's not affordable housing. And we have 2 transit lines right there that I think we need to make sure that we bring services to that community and affordable housing.
How is it determined that it's either or? That you have to choose between a public amenity that's a destination. We have the Ontario line, the Eglinton Crosstown, that have literal stations that say the Ontario Science Centre station. That is a part of that community, and that community deserves local services and infrastructure and housing. And it's a false dichotomy.
Can I jump in here because I think we're hearing a lot of storytelling. I mean, life is about storytelling. Ontario Place is about history. The Science Centre is about history, but it's also about the future. And I'm glad you raised the name change. And of all the reasons I can think of to not expand and share the Science Centre as a chance to renew Ontario Place, about which I'll talk about in a second, and your point about it being alive and full of vim and vigor today, we change names all the time, for better or for worse.
With all due respect,
if I can
Martin?
just finish, Ozma, because I listened to you.
Yeah.
Maple Leaf Gardens, Sky Dome, the Bell Place, Scotiabank, this, that. I mean, of all the reasons to keep the Science Centre locked in place, that there was a placeholder of a name for the transit line has to be the worst.
The name is about a destination,
The second
right?
worst would be to say that we have a subway line there that will be opening up new doors for people in that entire neighborhood, and so we can't move a thing. Look, I took my kids to Ontario Place up until the very end, and there was nobody there. Just me and my kids. Yeah, if I can just tell you, because I was there and you weren't when I was there with my family, so you're arching your eyebrows. Like it's not possible.
Are you talking about the last 3 years?
No, I'm talking about the last dying days of Ontario Place as a destination attraction. It was
what
dying.
year
If
are
I
you
can just
talking
finish.
about?
My kids and I
What
came back
year?
in 2006, 2007.
Okay, but
2008.
since then, decades
If I
have
can just
gone
finish,
by.
if I can just finish, my point really is that, because we have a talking spoon here, so let's try to share. We're all about consultation. So the thing is, Ontario Place lost out to Canada's Wonderland. It lost out to the beer garden.
If you think of it as a theme park, it's not a theme park.
If I can just complete one thought, Ken. So Ontario Place had water slides. It had beer gardens. It had the IMAX Cinesphere, built at the time of Expo 67. And Ontarians weren't going to Ontario Place anymore. So we've had 10 or 11 years of stasis where it was closed and nothing was happening there. And I have not heard great ideas. You seem to love your own idea, but I have not heard the people of Toronto rallying behind the idea of a boardwalk or a casino or a Ferris wheel. The Science Centre is a proven attraction, and the best place to bring it back to life is in this jewel of a location, because location matters. And so we can keep part of the Science Centre or we can move it all, whatever works. but don't let inertia and nostalgia get in the way of the future.
All right, I've listened to you carefully. I'm going to give you 12 reasons why moving the Science Center to Ontario Place is a terrible
Can't do
idea.
12. Give us your top
Here
three.
they go, rapid fire. 50 years ago, we made a really important decision that not all the major cultural institutions would be in downtown Toronto, that some of them would actually be in the inner suburbs, serving the variety of population that we have. That was a great decision of the progressive conservative government, and we had Metropolitan Toronto of the day, and the Science Center was one of those institutions. Putting everything in one location, as the Premier said, getting 10 million people a year to arrive at one spot on the waterfront, hyper-concentration makes no sense. Two, the communities, Flemington Park and Thorncliffe Park, have spoken up and said how important this is to their communities. Three, the irony, it's no longer isolated. We're building a subway and light rail right to the doorstep with the station, with the name. In terms of intensification, all four corners of Don Mills and Eglinton are being developed for tens of thousands of people. As we speak now, the cranes are there building on those sites. There is room on the uplands, out of the hazard lands, to build more housing, Anna, in the parking lots. Without touching the Science Center as a science center. The land, the 81 acres owned by the Conservation Authority, we learned a lesson in Hurricane Hazel. So for the Premier to be talking about building in hazard lands makes zero sense, and it's not going to happen.
Can I get Anne to respond to some of those points right now?
Okay, I can finish this real quick. Because
let's get it because it's fresh on
I
Anna's
just
head.
want to say that 50 years ago, it probably with 2 years savings, you could buy a house in Toronto.
Right.
Now, that's not the case. I just wanted to say that 50 years ago, the number of people that were spending 60, 70, 80% of their salaries in rent was significantly reduced. 50 years ago, our workers were able to live in our city. 50 years ago, we had services across the city. What I'm saying is we need to stop finding excuses to build housing and actually look at what is the opportunity, every opportunity, especially when we have government land that we know brings affordability down. We know that when we have government land, we can actually produce housing, the affordable housing that we need. We have this land here that is on 2 transit lines that we need to use for much needed affordable housing in our city. Not the only land.
Is the Ontario Science Center the only?
No. It's not the only land. There's a lot more land that should be used, but this is an example of a community that needs affordable housing, that needs services as well. That needs services, and I am not saying that let's not have services of innovation in there, but let's work with the community using that building to build the services as well and to build affordable housing in there. That's my priority. For me, that's my priority, and to make sure that we actually at Ontario Place have something that is of a public institution. Because everybody's been talking about the spa, but I mean, why not make sure that we have a state-of-the-art public institution as well in our waterfront?
Okay, I'm just going to go straight to the last point, which is dealing exactly with what you said. The Science Center that is proposed at Ontario Place is half the size of the existing Science Center, 250,000 square feet versus 586. Suddenly, it's less important, it's less interesting.
Oh my goodness.
Can I finish, Martin?
Of course you can, but
Okay.
really, size doesn't always matter.
There are major logistical problems. To get to the little diagram they've produced of the Science Center, it's a little pavilion that is dwarfed by the ticketing pavilion of the spa right next to it. You have to go into a tunnel. The Premier keeps saying you're going to get a new building. In fact, you're not getting a new building. You're repurposing the pods, which are much more complicated to repurpose than upgrading the existing Science Center where it is. What it ends up being is a little saddlebag nestled up against this gigantic, monstrous spa, which, according to the designers, is the size of the BMO Field Stadium. So do a little thought experiment, lift the stadium up, move it across Lakeshore Boulevard, and you stick this little pimple for the Science Center next to the entry pavilion. You have to duck into a tunnel, and then you go to the pods, that's something that's half the size of the existing science center.
So, you know,
How is that better?
size doesn't always matter.
I'm going to jump in here. This is a perfect time to segue over to the spa. So let's talk about Thermae's plan to build a 700,000 square foot spa and waterfront on the West Island. So these are some of the details that the province unveiled. The province signed a 95-year lease with Thermae Group Canada. On Tuesday, Premier Doug Ford said the deal would come at no cost to taxpayers, but the province will be on the hook for a 5-level parking structure with 2,100 underground spaces and 630 surface spots, which internal estimates peg between $300 million to $600 million. And Thermae will be investing $350 million into their construction, and $100 million of that would be going into surrounding public space. Lesma, those details, what do you think about the plan overall for the spa?
Well, just earlier this month, we heard from city planning, and the province has agreed to cooperate with the city's development application process. And it was the first kind of close look at the development application and a public position from city staff on what they saw, and the size and the massing of the building, the unacceptable limitations of public access, the concerns around meeting our climate and environmental leadership goals, the fact that an environmental assessment has been blocked around this, the removal of 800 mature trees. All of it is adding up to say that this development application is not proven that it belongs on our waterfront and is not actually working in the interests of the city, of Torontonians, and Ontarians at large.
Martin, I'm going to come to you, and then Ken, I'm going to come to you after. Thermae will invest $100 million in the public space around the spa and water park. In the ad, Thermae said that they will restore the spirit of Ontario Place for everyone. We know how your visit was in 2006, 2007. Does this plan do that?
Well, I'm not a fan of the spa. I've written a column saying that it was it wasn't.
How many times have you been to a spa in the last year or so?
Well, my wife used to drag me to spas across Asia when we were posted in Hong Kong, and she worked for the Wall Street Journal and had the spa beat among other beats. So I've been dragged to spas and had hot oil poured down my head and so on. But I'm still not in love with it. But I've asked everyone I know who does like spas, and my wife doesn't like this idea, but a lot of other women do. So maybe they'll have their husbands say, you're taking the kids to the Science Center, and I'm going to the spa. Who knows? Look, as an anchor tenant, it didn't add up. It wasn't to scale. Asma makes some good points about the city planning concerns about it. But I think we shouldn't get sidetracked on what the future of Ontario Place will look like. The spa needs to be at scale, but it proves the point that in this endless search for the perfect solution for Ontario Place, not a casino, not a Ferris wheel, not condos, maybe not a spa, what are you left with? Oh, perfect boardwalk parkland, as if that will be a destination attraction for Torontonians year after year. Chicagoans, people from San Diego, from around the world, they're not going to come for a boardwalk, okay? There's one in Sault Ste. Marie. So you need something that is a proven filter, a proven attraction, I should say. And we've seen this in Singapore. There have been studies here that have been done that I've written about. In Singapore and other overseas attractions, a cultural and educational attraction is an anchor, and the spa is a sideshow, and we need to figure out what to do about it, but let's not get sidetracked on it. The Science Center is the magic trick.
So we have proven that our waterfront, our public and green spaces are draws. I can mention that 1.5 million people coming to Ontario Place and to our waterfront. We actually have 3 million visitors a year, 1.5 million visitors to the Toronto Islands alone. And we know that they're a winner, right? That they do bring visitors, they bring locals, they bring economic activity. So to claim that our excellent public and green spaces aren't good city building and good economic choices is just wrong. And we've seen that. And as far as I understand, in the Premier Ford's second favorite city in Chicago, we have seen that play out. We look to Chicago and its waterfront as an example because of Millennium Park, because of the public and green space and the access to the water that you have there. So if we're looking at being a world-class city and looking at the best examples, we have a number of them. Right next to Ontario Place, we have Trillium Park, a fraction of the cost of what we're looking to spend to rehabilitate Ontario Place, and that is a packed destination destination. You should go there anytime that the weather is good and even when it's not. We're building in the Portlands, thanks to the leadership of Waterfront Toronto, a public park that is going to be a destination playground for locals and visitors alike. And it does make sense. It does make good economic sense, as well as making sure that we're actually building something green, publicly accessible for generations to come.
And all I'm hearing is a mixed message, though. Bring back Ontario Place. Ontario Place was the dream of Ontario and the progressive conservatives of John Robarts and Bill Davis era. But actually, what we really want is parkland. I think what we need is something special, extra special,
it was
that's proven.
Extremely special. The collaboration of Michael Huff, one of the pioneers of an ecological approach to landscape, Everhard Zeidler, one of our foremost architects, created a truly unique form of public park. That's what they called it. You talked about Sault Ste. Marie and a boardwalk. I have an answer for you. Central Park, the Golden Gate Park, the Bois de Boulogne, Chapultepec, you name it. That's what the great cities in the world are known for. Our genius loci, our genius of place is our relationship to our lake. It extends not just at one dot, it's all the way from Cootes Paradise, all the way to the Scarborough Bluffs, all the way along. Millions of people, the people coming to live here, who do not have cottages in the Muskokas, come, they use, it's an issue of equity. It's an issue of what belongs to the people. When we go to other cities, we go to the places that locals love. Those are the most interesting places.
And I don't have a cottage, just for the record.
How does having the science center in the waterfront is actually not going to help with that? How equitable is that? Like, people can't afford to live in our city right now.
I think Chloe Brown's idea.
We have to build housing.
Okay. Can I ask this question to Anna? We've mentioned this is prime real estate in Canada. If you think about it, what is this space for? Is it potentially a giant central park? Like, what is this space for?
The
waterfront.
I think it is public space, but that's why I believe that the science center would be a good location for it. It has proven. We actually had experts doing studies, as per your article, Martin, doing studies on how it makes sense to have the science center in the waterfront, right? So we know that it can work, but most importantly, it will free up the existing building to bring services to that community, to work with that community to create a vision for services and for affordable housing as well.
Okay.
So
you can have, I'm going to parse the two ends of the Ontario line. At the Science Center, you can have an enormous amount of housing happening at the four corners around the combined subway stop and light rail stop, including the parking lots of the existing Science Center when you get out of the hazard lands. Nothing stopping you from keeping the Science Center. The Science Center, as I understand it, actually had plans not to move Holus Bolus to the waterfront and do a half-sized facility, but to actually do a branch that would do real science on the water, that would have exhibitry related to climate change, related to dealing with the environment, with the hydrology, with all of the aspects that we're so focused on nowadays, in addition to
So, Ken, were we agreeing
center.
that the building can have more than just science? It can have all kinds of community services. It could have some science as well. And it could have, you can have the housing as well.
I'm saying you can have the housing. What we're getting
Can I jump in, Joe,
is
and just-
a mini version
Let's
of
get
the
the
Science Center, awkwardly shoved up against this thing which dwarfs it, half size.
But I think we all agree on the
You
spa
do.
issue. We all agree. I mean, I think I've heard here that we all have issues with the
Right.
proposal on the spa, and I think planning and the city and the
If
city.
you want to talk about science,
Can I jump in and
Sure.
make an important point here that you're talking about size and sprawl of the Science Center as if it dare not be resized in any way. I've been to the Science Center with my kids as well, and it is a sprawling, brutalist piece of architecture that many people love, and maybe it'll stay. But the idea that to resize it and make it better and more functional and more attractive at Ontario Place Why is that wrong? I mean, the pictures of kids with their hair standing up, that's from the space
What's
age.
wrong is moving a public amenity from a community without consultation. You're talking about consultation after the fact. The Ontario Science Centre isn't just a building that sits alone in a vacuum.
So, Asma,
it is
if
a
the-
source of jobs.
if the
It is a
community-
source of
if the-
community,
if the people of Ontario
community
supported it?
resources, and it needs to be, any decisions around its future actually have to engage the community before the decision is made, not after the fact. So we can talk about improvements to Ontario Place. We can talk about improvements to the Ontario Science Centre. We can talk about your memories with your kids, which is really important, and I very much like
You've
to
met
hear
my
it.
kids, so I'm
yes,
sure
and it's
you have
really
to listen to
wonderful.
that.
But what we're talking about right now is a process, and a process that has been secretive,
Okay, can
that
I-
has not been
okay.
engaging the local community, and has not been working in the community's interests, is always going to be deeply flawed and not going to get the best outcome that we're talking
I
about.
only have a few-
Let's
I only
talk
have a few
substance
minutes.
then.
Martin, do you mind?
If the public supports it, you okay with it?
I would like to hear that. I would absolutely like to hear that. And if that's the case, then we can work with that. But to, overnight present this to a community and say, why aren't you happy, is really not acceptable.
All right, Asma, I'm going to stay with you. We only have a couple minutes and a couple questions I still want to get to. I'm going to quote the Premier. Doug Ford said, "I always respect that Toronto is the host city, but last time I checked on the sign out there, it doesn't say Toronto Place. It says Ontario Place." Who ultimately decides the fate of Ontario Place?
Well, just yesterday, I was very encouraged to hear in a press conference with the Premier that he wants to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the City of Toronto when it comes to the future of Ontario Place. And I hope that that is demonstrated in the way that we move forward on this proposal. Like I said, the province did agree to cooperate with our development application process. Of course, we've known all along this is primarily the province's land, and the decision-making very much lies with them. We do have some really important levers at the City of Toronto, and one of them is that we have 16 acres of city-owned land that goes through the tenanted area and the public realm of Ontario Place. And just this past week, as a local city councillor, I refused my consent to expedite the process to begin to enable a land exchange and to defer that decision until City Council has had an opportunity to actually take a position on the development application and whether it is in the interests of the City of Toronto and Torontonians. So we're going to use every lever that we have to get the best outcome, and I'm really looking forward to the Premier and the province to cooperate with us on that.
All right, one question to all of you. It's the last question that we have for all the time. Ken, you talked about it a little bit, the original plan sort of for Ontario Place reflected something.
I just want to say, Asma, we have to recognize that a 95-year lease has already been signed. So cooperation is great. We're being told it's a done deal. The word Ontario comes from the Iroquois Canadario, which means sparkling water, and it referred to the eastern end of Lake Ontario. It doesn't refer to an Austrian spa. The genius of Ontario Place was that it was about Ontario, the land of Ontario, the people of Ontario. What we're seeing has nothing to do with that. The fact that all these spas that Therm has done are identical wherever they are in the world. You Google the images, they all look like cookie cutter images, speaks to something that simply doesn't make sense. So who gets to decide? I'll take the Premier at his word. If this is going to be collaborative, if it's going to involve, he seemed to be suggesting a much more conciliatory tone. Let's involve the people of Toronto. Let's work with the Conservation Authority. Let's work with the local communities. I think Asma has said it right. We have to go back to the drawing board. First thing is to get the spa off the site. Second thing, if there's to be science there, real science, not an attraction, but real science that has to do with our environment, our place, the existential crises we're facing in the world related to climate change, it's got to be thoughtfully done, not as a saddlebag to a gigantic spa in a diminished form, which as far as I know, no one was asking for.
All right. Last two questions go to you. What do you think this current plan says about Ontario's identity now? Start with Martin.
The current plan?
The current plan.
I think it speaks to 10 or 11 years of lost time and a failure of imagination. I didn't hear passionate crusade for action during this lost time. I think Ontario Place was largely forgotten, and I think it needs to be reinvented, and I think it needs to be anchored by a cultural attraction that people love, and that can be done in an exciting and dynamic way. And going back to the etymologies of words isn't going to get us where we need to go. I think what we need to think hard about is what's going to work, what will get people excited, everybody excited. I don't have a cottage, okay? Maybe we can do a canvas of who has cottages at this table. I don't. So I care about the waterfront. I've lived by the waterfront, and I've been to those places. And to me, you can ask about identity, but I think we need to think about something that's concrete and that will have a resonance with people in an enduring way.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Ken, Asma, Martin, Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Really, really good conversation.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.